Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lena. This is Lena's Bookshelf, and today we have a very special video. I have been working on this one for weeks now. So today we are going to rank all of Lucinda Berry's books. So I have now read all of Lucinda Berry's full published works and also a novella that she's published. And I'm going to take you through my thoughts on all of them. Strap in, get a snack, get some popcorn, something, because this might be a longer video. So I have my water here. I have my latte. It turned out so good today. And we're just gonna get into this. This would be a great guide for somebody who isn't sure which Lucinda Berry book to start with. Maybe you don't know anything about Lucinda Berry, or maybe you've read all of them and we can kind of compare our thoughts. So I have my computer here with pages and pages of notes. So Lucinda Berry is a former clinical psychologist, and she also has done a lot of research in trauma. And so she decided to take all of that experience and put it into some novels. She lives in LA and she is a single mom. And if you follow her Instagram or TikTok, she does have some content with her son in it too. But she currently has 9 books published and 1 novella. And I think somebody told me that she has a YA novel that she wrote with somebody else, but I have not read that one and I haven't really heard anybody talk about it, so I'm not sure how popular that one is. And she just recently had a book come out this month. She had Under Her Care come out, and I actually have that one here. So I do have Under Her Care physically. And she has also recently announced that she has a new book coming out in January of 2023, and that's going to be called Off the Deep End. I'll put a picture of the cover on the screen. So keep in mind, this is just my opinion. This is not a reflection of the books themselves. This is just my opinion and what I thought of them. And also keep in mind that even the ones that I talk about are the lowest on my ranking, none of these are bad books. Every book that I've read by Lucinda Berry, I've given at least 3 stars. So 3 stars is like, yeah, it's good. I had a good time reading it, but maybe it's not something that I would be like telling everybody they have to go out and read it. Or it's probably not something where the plot line would stick with me for a long time. So when I rate a book a 3, it doesn't mean that it's bad by any means. So if I ranked your favorite Lucinda Berry lower on this scale, I do apologize. Sorry, no offense meant. This is just what I felt, and this is the way I rank her books. But like I said, they're all good books. You could pick up any of these and probably have a good time. I just have them ranked from my favorite to the ones that maybe weren't as much of a favorite. So let's start with the books that I ranked 3 stars. So my least favorite of Lucinda Berry's books is The Best of Friends. And this one, I gave it 3 stars, but it has a Goodreads rating of 4.07. And this is very similar to Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty if the children in Big Little Lies were teenagers. So take those kindergarten age kids from Big Little Lies and make them teenagers, and that was basically this book. Some teenagers are in a car accident and one of them passes away, one of them is unconscious, and one of them is so scared and traumatized by the event that he is not talking. So it's up to the parents to really figure out what happened, what led to this car accident. And it kind of brings up some of those questions. Do we really know our children as well as we think we do? And so like I said, this wasn't a bad book by any means. It just didn't really seem like as high of stakes as some of her others. Lucinda Berry does the moral dilemma question really well. What would you do in this situation? How far would you go for your family? And this one was just kind of more of your basic domestic thriller. I think if I had read this before Big Little Lies, I would probably have liked it more, but I read Big Little Lies a long time ago. And I thought that one was fine too. I gave that one 3 stars. I wasn't in love with that one like so many people were. And I wasn't really in love with this one either, but it was fine. It's just not something that's gonna stick with me. The next book I have on this scale is Missing Parts. And like I said, I gave it a 3 stars, and on Goodreads it has a 3.99. And I think this is actually the lowest rated book of hers on Goodreads. And Missing Parts is actually her first book, and it deals less with child trauma and things that a psychiatrist would come in contact with, and more of a survival type of trope. So you're following this woman whose daughter becomes seriously ill, and so as she's trying to figure out how to protect her daughter and how to make her daughter well, she ends up doing something really bad. And so she has to go on the run. So she basically runs away from all of these secrets and runs away from her past. and runs away from her family, and she kind of goes and lives in the woods for a little bit. And she there is a little tiny bit of romance in this book, which I did enjoy. I think Lucinda Berry did it really well to have just a little bit of romance, but not so much that it overtook the plot. But if you liked a book like The Passengers by Lisa Lutz, or Dear Wife by Kimberly Bell, those kind of on the run, I need to change my name and my identity trope to escape something, then I think you might like this one. So those are both of the books that I rated 3 stars. Now we're getting into the books that I rated 4 stars. So the next book that I have on my list is Phantom Limb. So I gave it 4 stars, as I just said, and Goodreads has it at a 4.12. So in this book, you're following 2 sisters that were abused and neglected as a child. Like, a lot of horrific stuff happened to them and was done to them when they were very, very little. And so you kind of follow through their past a little bit, and then you follow one of the sisters who wakes up in a psychiatric ward, and all she remembers is seeing her sister's body lifeless in the tub. And so she has a little bit of amnesia, and they're trying to figure out what led up to her sister dying. Was it suicide? Was she murdered? And so this girl, Emily, has to really work to find her memory and figure out what happened to her sister, Elizabeth. It also really helps her come to terms with a lot of the trauma that she and her sister suffered as very little children. This one was good, but I did guess the twist, and I saw it coming, and so I wasn't very surprised. So I think if you are new to the thriller genre, if you read this, you would be super surprised by the trope. And also, she talks about the abuse and neglect that the girls suffered as children, but it wasn't super, super graphic. So again, I think if you're trying to get into the thriller genre, this might be a good one to start with. Okay, the next one I have on my ranking is gonna be a little controversial because it's her most popular one, and it's The Perfect Child. So my rating was 4 stars. Goodreads rated it 4.2. And this book, I think if I didn't work in the behavioral health field, I might have rated this higher, and I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. This is the first book that I read by Lucinda Berry, and I read it about 2 years ago. And you're following this couple who is struggling with infertility, and they work at a hospital, and they meet this little girl who was brought in. She's been placed in the foster care system, and she has a lot of medical needs due to abuse and neglect that she has suffered. And this couple really falls in love with this little girl, and they decide to foster her and bring her home. But then once they bring her home, she starts showing a lot of symptoms, a lot of physical, emotional, and intellectual symptoms of her trauma. And so then it becomes a little bit unsafe. She starts being a danger to herself, to the parents, and to others. And so they really have to ask themselves that moral question of, are we the right placement for this child? Can we keep this child safe? Are we what she needs, or does she need a higher level of care? The reason that I rated this lower, I think, is because I do work in behavioral health care, and the little girl, Janie, in this book is just like every single client that I work with on a day-to-day basis. So this wasn't shocking. It wasn't shocking to hear about a child smearing feces on her walls. It wasn't shocking to hear about a child trying to strangle a pet. It wasn't shocking to me to hear about a child saying horrible, awful things about somebody, just because I see it every day, unfortunately. So unfortunately, I feel like I'm a little bit numb to children like Janie. And so reading this book, it just kind of felt like a day at work to me. So I think that's why I rated it a little bit lower, but also I felt like Janie needed to be met where she was at. And it just felt like a lot of the characters in the book were trying to make Janie the way they wanted her to be and the way they expected her to be. We don't need them to fit into our idea of the way they should act or what they should do. We have to meet them where they are and help them live the most fulfilled life that they possibly can. So that's my soapbox. I'm really passionate about behavioral health care, and I have been working with individuals with trauma, disabilities, autism, intellectual disability, all different sorts of abilities and disabilities for over a decade. So I love that Lucinda Berry brings to light some of these things. I just didn't really agree with the way she brought light to them. But I think that if you liked books like We Need to Talk About Kevin or The Push, I think you would really enjoy a book like The Perfect Child. Okay, the next book we have is her most recent one, Under Her Care, and I do own this one physically. I only own 2 of her books because a lot of them are available on Scribd and Kindle Unlimited. so I was able to read or listen to a lot of them on my phone. But I did buy this one because I pre-ordered it. I rarely pre-order books, but I knew I had to have this one and I wanted it physically, and so I have already read it. It came out just at the beginning of this month. And in this one, there is a murder that has happened by a body of water, and the only suspect they have is a teenage boy with autism because he was found next to the victim's body covered in blood. And his mother is his primary caregiver, and she used to be a beauty queen. So the police bring in a specialist who specializes in autism spectrum disorder to help them get a statement from this teenage boy Mason. But he doesn't have typical language. He doesn't communicate verbally, and he has a lot of supports that are provided to him by his mother. So she has to try to figure out, okay, how can I learn what happened from Mason's perspective when he's not just going to tell me what happened? And then you start seeing some sketchy things going on with the mother. So I really like the way this was done. I usually don't like the small town trope where everybody knows everybody else and everybody's in each other's business, but I really did enjoy this one. This is what I wanted The Hunting Wives to be. So if you didn't like The Hunting Wives, you might like this one a little bit more. The last book of Lucinda Berry's that I rated 4 stars was When She Returned, and Goodreads rated it a 4.07. And in this one, you're following a woman who disappeared from a parking lot, left her husband and baby, and was just gone for years. And then she shows up years later and she has a baby with her. Come to find out, she was kidnapped by a cult. And I really enjoyed this because a lot of times when I read books about cults, you're specifically only from the point of view of the person who is in the cult or the person who is studying the cult or whatever it is. Like you got to really hear and feel what it was like from the daughter's perspective to all of a sudden have a mom show up that you don't remember knowing as a child. A lot of times we just get the cult itself, but there often is a lot of hardships that go on in the families of people that are in cults. And it was, but I think more so than a thriller about cults, it was a character study about the family and what the family was going through while the mother was in the cult. Okay, so now we're into my 5-star books. So I've given 3 of her books 5 stars. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is The Secrets of Us, and it has a 3.99 Goodreads rating, so a little bit lower than some of the others. But so in The Secrets of Us, you're following 2 sisters. They're not really sisters, but they were foster sisters that just really fell in love with each other and decided, hey, we're gonna be our own family. So they've grown up, they have careers, they're married, and one of the sisters has been committed to a psychiatric hospital because she attempted to murder her husband. So her sister has to try and figure out why, and they really have to come to terms with some things that happened to them in their childhood. So this book is really a character study on the bond of sisters, or the bond of 2 people that decided, hey, we are sisters, we were meant to be each other's family. And a lot of the dark secrets that they are holding and the reason they're holding on to these dark secrets. And again, if you like the how far would you go for your family trope, this is a great example of that. The second book that I gave 5 stars and my second favorite book overall of Lucinda Berry's is The Appetite of Innocence. And this one has a Goodreads rating of 4.28, so a little bit higher. And in this one, we're following a serial rapist who kidnaps young girls. But he doesn't want just any young girls. He wants virgins. And he finds them, he grooms them, he lures them in, and then he kidnaps them. And once he has taken every ounce of innocence that they have left, he disposes of them. So all of that happened until Ella. Ella is the first girl that actually figured out how to escape, and she escaped with one of the other girls. So the police are trying to find this serial rapist, and Ella is trying to help them. But the other girl that escaped with her, Sarah, has some secrets that she's not telling anybody. So then they're trying to uncover, okay, what is it that Sarah is hiding? Why is she protecting this person that kidnapped her? This one is pretty graphic. I think it's probably the most graphic of Lucinda Berry's books that I have read because it does go into a lot of detail about the serial rape and rape of underage girls and things like that. So definitely go into this one knowing that. Definitely look up some other trigger warnings, but it was my second favorite book of hers. It had a really good ending. And last but not least, we have my favorite Lucinda Berry book, and that is Saving Noah. So Saving Noah has a Goodreads of 4.22. This book I read in December of last year, and I read it because it was the buddy read for my friend Jacqueline's Patreon. It was It was the monthly buddy read, and I think a lot of people that read this also liked it. But in this one, you're following this teenage boy, Noah, and he admits to molesting little girls during swim practice. And so he is sent to a recovery center. And so all of that has already happened. And this book is set when he is released from that rehabilitation center. And a lot of this book takes place from the point of view of his mother and kind of struggling with, okay, is this nature? Is this nurture? Is this something I did? Is this something I could have seen coming? And all of the guilt that could potentially go along with having a son that suffers with pedophilic disorder. And again, moral dilemma, one of the biggest moral dilemma questions I have seen in one of these books. How far would you go for your family? How far would you go to protect your son? And then there was a twist at the end that I didn't see coming at all. I thought I knew what it was going to be, but it was so well done and I was shocked. I think when I was reading it, I think my jaw literally dropped. So I highly recommend it. I would also recommend the audiobook of this because you do have male and female narrators. I think that was really helpful when it came to the twist. Okay, that was a lot. I've been recording for like 33 minutes, so we're gonna have to cut a lot of that out. But yeah, that was my personal ranking of all of Lucinda Berry's full-length novels. It's safe to say that Lucinda Berry is one of my top 3 favorite authors at this point. I would read that lady's grocery list. She is just so smart, and she comes at childhood trauma from such a great perspective and such a great angle. And I think she's so respectful about the things that people go through and not shaming people for things that happen to them. So if somebody wants to learn more about trauma and how it affects the brain, they don't have to go to a science book or a nonfiction book or a self-help book and learn about different aspects and symptoms of trauma from the perspective of just a storytelling. Go ahead and leave me a comment and tell me which Lucinda Berry books you have read or which of these sounds interesting to you. But thanks so much for watching, coming along with me as we delve into all of Lucinda Berry's books. Please hit that subscribe button, it really helps out my channel, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!